You're about to see why Joe Rogan is the man. A man of truth, a man of honor, a man of integrity. The man. This is basically him talking about all of the trials and tribulations he went through when he decided to dig his heels in the sand and stand his ground against pretty much everybody during the whole pandemic, when he decided to interview people that most people would say are spreading misinformation and this and that. And he was right. He stood his ground, and it turned out he was right. And it's just a few minutes of him talking about what he went through and what it was like and what he planned to do if he lost everything. Inspiring. Very inspiring. I'm Coach Colin, coolest high performance coach in the world. And if you want the absolute best insights to the clips and podcasts that you love, you've come to the right place. Now hit that subscribe button. We're at episode 1920 of the Joe Rogan Experience with Dave Portnoy. Let's get into it.
My perspective was like, look, if it's true, it's true. And the chips will fall where they may. And if the only way people are getting this information is through me, that's fucking crazy. But that's also the cross I have to bear. This is what it is. I'm talking to this guy. I'm fascinated by it personally. I want to know. I mean, and he was wildly disparaged. So was Dr. Peter McCullough, wildly disparaged. But turns out he was accurate. And as more and more information gets out over time, it will show what happened, how they were suppressed, how there was active campaigns to silence them, and how those campaigns were funded. And that's what we're finding out right now. So it was an uncomfortable time for sure, especially when people like, fucking Neil Young. Oh, I loved Neil Young. But Neil Young, I don't know if this is true or not, but somebody told me that after I released my video explaining how a lot of the stuff that they called misinformation in the past that would get kicked you off is now mainstream news, like the lab leak hypothesis. If you talked about the lab leak hypothesis on YouTube at the beginning of the pandemic, you would have been fucking canceled. They would have pulled you off of YouTube. They would have suppressed your episodes. They would have canceled. Now that's on the cover of fucking Newsweek. Right? And now most scientists and epidemiologists and virologists are pointing towards that as the likely scenario, that is a lab leak. I had Brett Weinstein, who is a evolutionary biologist, on yesterday, and he explained why that lab leak hypothesis is most likely correct in scientific terms that are like mind-boggling. So was it good? No, but it is what it is, and my perspective is, look, it could be, I'm in a very unusual, unfortunate situation. And sometimes you find yourself in a place in life where you have to figure out what you're going to do. Are you going to not talk to these people because of pressure when you think these people are telling the truth? Or are you going to let the chips fall where they may?
So that was over because from, again, totally outsider, it seemed like a big deal. Like it seemed like a big thing within Spotify. It seemed, you're saying it wasn't as big, though it was just small, like you weren't getting. That, for me, is almost all the stuff you said, whether it was true or not true, I think you believed it was true. That's all that kind of matters. It turns out a lot of it was. But it's, there's similarities. You did it so long yourself, and then Spotify's under a ton of pressure. Didn't they delete some of your episodes?
Yeah. Well, they did that, and they also were very apprehensive about certain guests that I had on. And there was, a lot of pressure from advertisers. There was a lot of pressure from different people. They were, like different artists like Neil Young and Joni Mitchell pulled their stuff. And it was touch and go. But again, over time, it showed that was all true. And then all that went away.
Yeah.
And so it was now, if I was wrong, now imagine if I was wrong, and not even me. I shouldn't say I was wrong because I wasn't really the one who was saying these things. These things were mostly being said by experts. But if those experts turned out to be horseshit, that would be devastating. Like if it did cause the death of millions of people because these guys were lying and these people didn't take something that could have saved them, and but it turns out that's not really the case. And it turns out there was alternate therapies and alternate different medications that were suppressed. Not only that, the information about simple things like vitamin D and exercise and the benefits of those things and how that was suppressed, about how obesity contributes to COVID, that was all suppressed. None of that stuff was being discussed. And
I'm wearing this now.
so it's just one of those things where you find out that the more things change, the more they remain the same. Pharmaceutical companies from the fucking beginning of their industry have been full of shit. They make great stuff. They make Adderall, you love it. They make Viagra. They make cancer medications that work. They make all these different things that are wonderful for people. All these different things that save people. But really what they're in the business of is making money. That's what they're in the business of.
100%.
And when something comes along that fucking steps on their money, they don't like it. You know?
Yeah. Like I said, for me, it was almost the bigger issue of I was curious how you were dealing with it. Meaning,
Or just keep on keeping on. Just keep doing it.
was that relationship ever close to being severed because of that, or
I
no?
don't think so. I don't know, though. You know, I don't know from them. My relationship with them was always great in communicating with them. They stood by me the way they stand by rappers. And that was one of the things they said. Like, think about all the shit that rappers say. And
But they stood by you for the same reason you're saying everything else. You make them money.
yes.
Like
It
they,
was
they
still-
probably weren't standing by you because we think he's got smart guys. Or Joe Rogan, we like Joe. They're staying by you because you're the biggest podcast in the
A
world.
friend of mine who's a brilliant businessman said, you have the #1 podcast in 96 countries. If you had the number 96 podcast in one country, you would have been gone.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's everything.
Yeah. But that's why, for whatever reason, you know, I found myself in the position I found myself in. Like that's who you are right now. That's your place in life. And you have to just be who you are. You can't change because of the pressure. You can't just decide to become a different person because there's all this pressure on you because you're scared.
Right.
Like then I'd quit. I wouldn't want to do it anymore. Then I would go do it for free. There was a point in time I was like, what would I do if I lost all of it? And I thought about it very carefully. And I said, I'll just do it for free. If I lost all my ads and all my advertisers, I would still have the #1 podcast, but with no advertisers. Okay.
Right.
I just do it for free. I just, cut my spending down a little bit, still do stand-up, keep doing the same shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't need advertisers.
You can do that in this day and age. This is a different world.
Man. And that's just it's amazing to see the mindset of somebody who was doing what he was doing and what he was ready to lose. Like in that last part there, he's just like, no advertisers, just keep doing the same shit. Like, but again, this is an example of something. He said a key thing there. He's like, you can't change just because there's a lot of pressure on you. You can't change who you are just because you're scared. And I think that's such a valuable lesson for everybody that, you know, there's going to be a lot of pressure in life. There's going to be a lot of negativity coming your way at certain points. And you can't shudder. You can't, back down because of that. You can't change who you are because of that. You can't act like you think a different way because you're afraid of somebody knowing how you actually think and how you actually feel. You have to stand your ground in who you are as a person, And I think that was just like he doesn't do it often. He stays really humble and he doesn't like to talk about who he is or like what he is. He doesn't even like to the fact that he brought up that he's the #1 podcast. Like he never does that. But, when he does, it's like a serious flex in 96 countries. I didn't even know that. That's insane. 96 countries. How many countries are there? That's a lot of countries, man. But man, it's just, I think there's a great learning in what he just said, Yeah. A lot to be learned and a lot to admire and a lot to aspire to in a man who's like that, And I invite you to really think about or remember when times of pressure come to stand in who you are, to just be like, this is what I think, Stand in that and don't let somebody back you down, Don't let society back you down. If you feel a certain way, feel that way. It's fine. The thing that comes to mind is like if you don't want to be a guy who wears nail polish, don't, man. And stand in that. Be like, I don't do that. And I don't think it's cool to do that. It's fine. And if you are a guy that wears nail polish, be like, I like my nail polish. What? Stand in who you are. Don't let the pressures of whoever's around you change you. Because honestly, to be blunt, that's some bitch shit. You back down because somebody says or somebody thinks something, or you think, you know what I mean? And we do that. We do that with friends. We do that with family. Stand in who you are. I always say it. The reason that you do that is because your tribe ends up coming out of the woodwork when you do that. When you stand up and just stay as who you are, other people who are like that start to see you, and you see them. And then you connect, and then like some beautiful stuff happens from there, because then you find lifelong friends. You find allies, Oh, man. Imagine that. Imagine he lost all his advertising and just kept on doing it. I believe him when he says he would. I really do. I really don't think he would conform to any of it. And he would just keep on doing what he was doing and just be a beast of a man. But yeah, that's the end of the clip. Hope you guys learned something. Learn something from the man, Joe Rogan. Honor, truth, integrity, and standing your ground. Essential for being a man. Peace.